what questions is Uber's public policy team mostly interested in?
The biggest focus for me as essentially a labor economist is, can we say sensible things about drivers? Are companies like Uber manipulating the system and saving costs at the expense of workers by tricking the world into thinking that they're independent? Or is there some value to being an independent worker, and can we excitedly look to this model, hitting other labor markets? Can Uber find other labor markets in which to deploy the technology? That's kind of one thing that I like to think about.
So in some sense, we're not asking the question of whether or not the drivers were better or worse off than whether they had Uber, but whether or not the drivers would be better off if it was required that there were a whole bunch of labor regulations which are enforced on employees but not on independent contractors.
Yes. So, for example, this question of a minimum wage comes up on a regular basis. And it's a difficult question because we need to remind people that what makes Uber's model remarkable is that a driver can drive whenever he or she wants, wherever he or she wants. Never do they find out, oh, sorry, there are no shifts available, and never do they find that they've applied for the job, they're qualified, but there are too many drivers, and so Uber just doesn't need them. So people, one of the really interesting things about this system is that you can try it without quitting your job. The frictions are very, very low, and that's pretty interesting from a public policy perspective.
What have been some of the major differences in the rollout in Uber across cities in the U.S. and comparing the U.S. with other countries globally?
So there are city characteristics, and then perhaps more importantly, there are regulatory characteristics. So we have no business in Tokyo, despite the fact that it should be a huge profit center for a successful ride-sharing company.
So I've taken Uber certainly I just took Uber in Brazil, I've taken it in South Africa. How are the challenges different?
Safety is a much bigger concern. Cash is a much bigger deal. And they go hand in hand, not unsurprisingly. So identity is something we rely heavily on for safety. And if you're paying with cash and you don't have a permanent e-identity, it makes it easier to do bad things.
What other things are big in the future for Uber?
So autonomous cars is an obvious answer to that question. But I think the more exciting question, since that's a well-worn question, is what will happen to the labor platform? Because a lot of people have the intuition that Uber will just say, well, we don't need half of our customers anymore. We have a lot of happy paying customers. Right. And so it is our responsibility to our shareholders to find work that can be adjudicated on our platform, dispersed on our platform. And I think we're just at the very beginning of this, because the reality is that the work on the platform isn't going anywhere anytime soon. The autonomous car rollout will be slow and complicated and bumpy, and in fact many people will work on the network that delivers the autonomous future. But the really interesting question is, are we going to be the people who figure out more work that can be divvied up and traded on this marketplace, or is somebody else going to do it and steal all of our customers? That's the interesting question.
What are some candidates for employing the Uber workers of the future?
Well, I think healthcare, food is another one. So we have Uber Eats right now, which is, again, it's a delivery food service that's more efficient thanks to our technology. But what if food services could be prepared in autonomous vehicles? And I think there's going to be an intense focus on how can we make moving time productive, and that's going to determine a lot of the future of cities, though I don't know in what direction.